50 to 55% of people die without even a basic will. It's just the fact that a vast majority of people don't want to deal with it. And frankly, it has nothing to do with the amount of money that you have.
Welcome to The Keys to Your Legacy with your host, Elijah Keys.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us today on the Keys to Your Legacy podcast. Today, we are very privileged to have Maria. Maria is a mortgage broker with Veridian Mortgage, and she is just a fantastic person. So thanks for appearing. Thanks for coming to see us today, Maria.
Oh, I'm so honored to be invited. Thanks, Elijah.
Honored. That's a big thing. That's the first time I've heard that. So tell us a little bit about yourself, not just about your work, but just about you.
Oh, sure. Let's see. I am an engineer,
Okay.
a mechanical engineer. I have not practiced since I started this career as a mortgage broker, but I do consider myself still very much a nerd and like to geek out on mechanical things and cars and other things like that. I guess because I was a little bit of a tomboy, so I love hanging out with, good thing I guess that I'm a boy mom, and I love hanging out with the scouts, and now they're both boys and girls and otherwise. And it's just a lot of fun to be outdoors with them and do all kinds of stuff.
Well, you have three kids, right? You have one stepson, you said, right?
Yes, that's right. We have Brett. I met him when he was, I don't know, 7-ish or so. He's a high functioning autistic person now. Really, really nice kid. You know, call him a kid because he still acts as one.
Sure.
But he is 6'4" and tall, but very, very helpful.
Let me interrupt you and ask you a question. Okay, so my mother is 5'3" and small, and I'm 6'1" and like 240, and I still cringe when she gets mad. I'm a late 40s-year-old man. I do martial arts, right? I still get scared of my 5'3" mom. Is that you too? Is that him? Does he react that way to you?
Yes, he does, because he's very much a pleaser. But I am 55, and I still cringe at my mom's dirty looks when we're trying to have some alcohol that she doesn't want us to have. So there's that.
But that's your mom's from Mexico, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. How did that? So I'm sorry, I interrupt you. I want to go back to the Mexico thing later, but tell us about your two other kids.
Yeah, so Jonathan and Joseph were adopted. We adopted them when they were 2.5 and 6 months. And yeah, they're my stinky boys. I have 3 monkeys at home.
You know, it's interesting to me that I remember speaking to a family where it was a husband and a wife, and they both had a child from a previous relationship, and they said these are our kids. And it struck me, this is years and years ago, 15 years ago that this happened, that family is not who you're related to. Oftentimes, family is who you choose. So I'm glad that you chose your family.
Thanks. And that's exactly what we tell them. We're used to when they were younger, right? Yeah. The whole thing about the secrets always come out. So they always knew that they were adopted.
Yeah, and when the secrets come out, oh boy, do they come out in a big way. I'm glad that you chose that path.
Yeah, so it's like a non-issue for them. They just grew up that way.
Yeah, and you've been married for a long time.
We have been together for almost 24 years, and we just had our first year anniversary of being married.
Wow. Congratulations.
I finally beat him down.
You finally beat him down. 24. It only took you 2 and almost a half decades. Well done. Well, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. I didn't know that. I don't remember that you had only been married for years. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's cause for celebration. Well, we know each other through a morning networking group where you're the illustrious leader. And most often we meet at 7 a.m. So it's like sweatpants and coffee time. But you're so kind. You're such a generous person. I have to drop off my kids most mornings, and you are so kind to allow me time to do that, but still be involved in the meetings. And so publicly, I wanted to say thank you. That's very kind of you.
Thank you. You're very welcome. I don't think it's something that I need to allow. I think it's something that I need to accommodate. And mostly because I love having you in our group. You bring so much knowledge and energy. And not only that, Elijah, we have to make those accommodations to make sure that everybody is included in our group.
Right. Yeah, it's actually a big focus of that group, that we actually make sure that everybody's heard, that everybody gets a place. I'm so glad that's focus.
Mhm.
Let me ask you a different question about Mexico, because you said that your mom's from Mexico and you still wither under her looks, which I do as well. But what is it like having, I mean, there has to be kind of a difference in values between you and her, having grown up here, but her being from there. Talk a little bit about that value difference, because that's always really interesting to me.
Sure. I guess I'll start off with she grew up in a smaller town in
Mhm.
Mexico, rural. So not only is she from a different generation, you can almost say she's from a few generations back just
Okay.
because of, you know, it was more of a smaller town feel. So the work ethic was always there, being thrifty, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
which I am the oldest of six. I would say she kind of inculcated those kind of values mostly to me, or at first to myself.
Yeah.
The differences are she grew up where men were always first to eat,
Okay.
always were given the deference for whatever it might be, whatever
Mhm.
situation. And that's just not how I grew up. Not to say that I'm not treated equally, but men had certain things to do and certain things not to do, which was like the housework and house chores and things like that. It's not how it is now, at least now
Yeah.
growing up here in the United States.
Well, it's not, and it might be the difference between flexibility of time, right? I mean, imagine that you have a farmer working in the fields. Everything is going to be surrounding that person's ability to go out and work in the fields, but you are a full-time person. I mean, you're a part owner of a brokerage company, right? So you have to pay expenses and you have to do marketing and you have to close deals, and you're working just as much as everybody else. And so I think that it's just a gap between who's working and who's supporting, because now we have kind of the workers and supporters being both doing both roles versus one person or the other, right? It's quite different.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But yeah, it's I've always considered myself straddling two things, whether
Two
it's
worlds.
Mexico, yeah, two worlds,
Mhm.
Mexico and the United States,
Yeah.
being a career woman, being a mom, being, just speaking English, speaking Spanish. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's actually funny that you say that, because I was on a business trip for a educational event a couple of months ago, and my wife was home with the kids, and they wanted to drill something in the wall. My wife is a very capable woman. She changed when she was 16. She took the engine out of her Mustang, rebuilt it, and put it back in. So I have a 65 Mustang in my front yard, or in my front yard, no, in my front driveway. I'm not that bad,
It,
but in my front
oh,
driveway.
is it on cinder
I
blocks?
Yeah, no, no, no. But I have a 65 Mustang in my front of my house that she rebuilt the engine and rebuilt the suspension. And this is a capable woman. So she pulled out the drill, just a handheld drill, and the things that were needed to hang this piece of art. The kid said, "You can't do that. Dad does that." No, that's
Oh,
not how it works. And so she said, "Really? No, dad could do this." And then one day I was cooking dinner and they said, "Dad, mom does that." And I had to remind them that there are no roles in the house. There's just jobs.
mhm.
There's tasks. And I don't like to clean bathrooms. So my wife cleans the bathrooms and I do the dishes. I don't like to mop, so I vacuum. Fine. But then I
Yeah,
had to remind them that during law school, when I was in law school, every single day
yeah.
it was very stressful. And every single day, I don't know how my wife and I got this, but we had the free Food Network. Somebody had the Food Network and they just forgot to turn it off. So we had the Food Network for free, and I would watch it for an hour and then I would cook the thing that they were making. So it was very meditative. It was very creative. It was really an outlet for me. But
Oh,
that I learned to
nice.
cook during law school by watching, all these I didn't like the weird stuff. I just like the conservative Italian cooking. I don't know why. I'm Jewish. It didn't make sense. That's what I liked. So
Totally
I'm
makes
really good
sense.
at it. I'm really good at a chicken cacciatore, even though that's not necessarily something that was ever eaten in my house. So there you go. So I made
But
that
I
funny
love
little
that
conversation.
how there's not roles, but there's tasks, right?
There's tasks.
And as a business owner, we look at whose personality on our staff fits better for that job.
Yep.
And like you said, if you don't like mopping, well, you're better suited to go vacuum. And
Yep.
that's part of a business owner.
It's what you do. Yeah. How many
That's
people are on
right.
staff now? How many people do you have there?
So we have about 5 on staff.
And it's you and
Um,
your partner, Richard, right?
and we have a third partner, Katie.
Okay.
So the 3 of us started Veridian Mortgage.
Richard is known as the illustrious connector. If you,
Yes.
yeah, whenever you need something, you call Richard, and Richard says, "I have 3 people for that." Everything he knows
Yes.
that. I don't know how he knows
And
everything, but he does.
he knows it off the top of his head. He doesn't even have to look at notes.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Mhm.
Tell,
Yeah,
tell me
he's a
about
machine.
tell me about what it means to be a mortgage broker, because I know just theoretically, but I don't know actually how you do your job.
I can tell you from a salesy perspective, we help people get mortgages, right, to buy a house. But really, for me, what I've loved about it is helping those purchase a home. So it's a home, not a house.
Okay.
For a lot of my clients, it's kind of their stepping stone into some sort of generational wealth. For some of them, it's just because they're tired of renting. But it really, for most people, it could be, whether you're a low income, mid income, high income, it's a really big decision to
Yeah.
purchase a home and the responsibility behind it. So, yeah, I really love it. I consider myself an introvert, but having those clients on a one-on-one session, they become my best friends for 30, 40, 45 days, however long we have to deal with, talking every other day. So it's just really fun for me to be able to do that. And I try to really treat them the way that my mom showed us how to treat everybody with respect.
Yeah.
And honestly, how I wish my parents would have been treated when they bought their home.
That's surprising to me that you say that you're an introvert, because I see you as a very engaging, outgoing person. Is that maybe something that you have learned to do, that you're an introvert, but you've learned to appear engaging and in public? Is that how you view yourself?
It has taken me some work. I have had to work at it, but I think working at it is not the right word. I've just learned to become comfortable around others. If you put me in a room full of complete strangers, I might behave differently. But I love talking to people. I love getting into like the layers of what they do for work, for fun, for enjoyment, for religion. People are so fascinating, and
Yeah.
I just love talking to them.
Yeah. I think people are really interesting too. The thing that I think is most interesting about people is to watch where they're from and to see what they do, because at the higher levels of every business, the business ends up being the same. If you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, if you sell widgets, if you make t-shirts, if you're a mortgage broker, the work is the same. What ends up being different are the people, right? It's always the people. Yeah. Well, tell
Right.
us about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that that's really what distinguishes one attorney from the other, or one mortgage broker from the other, is who do you connect with, right? Who do you consider has higher integrity, or has, whatever it is important to you, you want to connect with that other person.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I mean, you said that you've become comfortable being around others, even though you consider yourself an introvert, and that's fine. But that just reminds me of a message about talent that I heard from a sound engineer who I think worked for Metallica. And he was saying when things are easy, they're easy. And when things are hard, they get really hard. And so you want someone who is really hyper focused, so that the things that are hard for you aren't so hard for them. And that just reminds me just to focus on people who hyper focus, and you can buy their experience, right? Some people don't want to do that. That's fine. You don't have to. But just to buy experience is really, it's really what my focus is anyway, to find the best people for the right job, right? That's almost always the things that I'm trying to do now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more about because I only asked you a little bit about being a mortgage broker. Tell us about the process of getting a mortgage. What does it actually mean, or the steps to do it?
Yeah, sure. I'll start off with just being a mortgage broker. So we are the go-between the borrower, the buyer, the
Mhm.
client,
Mhm.
and the lender.
Okay.
So in this case, we call them lenders. We don't call them banks because they don't necessarily have to be a bank, but
Right.
they are the ones that are lending the money. So
Mhm.
we are directly engaging with our clients,
Mhm.
and we pre-qualify them. So it's not a generic thing that you can go online and enter your data. Just because there are so many different guidelines. If you haven't been working for 2 years, then I can't count your income. And if you go online and say you make $1 million a year, but you've only been working for 6 months, you're not going to get a loan. We have to count on that experience to advise our clients. Yes, based on the information that you gave us, because every single person is so different, right? Every financial situation is going to be different. We advise them, okay, now we have high probability and likelihood that you're going to get approved by the lender
Mhm.
because we reviewed your credit, we not just your score, but your credit history. We reviewed your income documents. We reviewed your asset documents. We reviewed everything that we know the lender's going to ask for. And so we have that high probability that they're going to get their
Mhm.
loan approved.
Okay. How many different lenders do you work with? Because you mentioned you
So
work with different lenders.
let's see, the last count for C2 Financial, which is our broker, they are the largest broker in the United States. I think it's definitely over 50. A couple of years ago, we had like 90. Now it's probably 60 or 70.
So when you're saying lender, you're talking about an institutional bank like Citibank, or
Mhm.
you're talking about a private money group like an investment group, or you're talking about a private individual, or you're talking about just someone who has a source of money that wants to invest it and get a return over time.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
And those lenders are either going to be, like you said, private money. They could be lenders that actually get traded on in the NASDAQ. It
Mhm.
could be, and then every one of them will have either a different set of guidelines because they are private and they
Sure.
hold on to those loans. They'll have their own set of guidelines, or they can have guidelines that are set by the federal housing financial agencies. So
Right.
someone like Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, FHA, VA, USDA, those that are have like a general set of guidelines.
Okay. So you're talking about that your job as a mortgage broker, just to break it down here, is to be the go-between between the borrower and the lender, and your job is to pre-qualify the buyer and find perhaps the right fit for the lending source and the terms that are going to work for them. And then you work between the two, the lender and the borrower, to make sure that things fit and that they close out. Is that right?
That's right. We may also provide different options, option A versus our option B, not necessarily tell them which one is the best, but given their set of circumstances, how long they're going to be in the property, how much money they have, etc. Here are two different options, and here are the pros and cons for each. Which do you prefer?
Right.
So we can also offer that as well.
Yeah. It seems like there's one part of your business and my business which are very similar, which is that a lot of my work is to hurry up and wait. So I'm dealing with a court or a governmental agency or a bank or a financial institution. I submit information to them and then I just kind of sit on my hands. And then I wait and I wait for them to get back to me. And sometimes they get back to me like the day before the event is supposed to occur, the day
Mhm.
before the hearing, the day before the deadline. And they say, "Oh, by the way, Mr. Keys, thank you so much for submitting this 4 months ago. We've now gotten around to filling this out. And by the way, you have 2 hours to respond and we need 10 different things." They just list them. And sometimes I can meet it and sometimes I can't. Is that does that happen to you a lot where basically you kind of get dumped on where underwriters and the customer and the lender, things are just going back and forth, and you're just conveying information?
There are sticky situations like that. Remember that a sale, especially a sale, but a sale or refinance has so many different people involved. But the
Mhm.
sale, you're going to have the seller and then the agents and then the title company and then the
Yep.
appraiser. and then the escrow company and the lender, and then us, the buyer and the broker. So a lot of times we do have to manage expectations.
Yeah.
We do prefer to work with those lenders that we know will provide the fast service and have a high degree of quality in their work, where they're not going to come back and say, oopsie, I forgot. Because at the end of the day, the underwriter is a human being. They're looking at their guidelines and things like that. But we also want to make sure it's not some Mickey Mouse shop that is offering a great rate, but we know it's going to be a terrible experience.
The reason why it's a great rate is because they've cut through as many expenses as they possibly can, and they just provide crappy service.
That's right.
You have to find the sweet spot, right? The sweet spot where you get a good rate, but you don't get crappy service. Because sometimes, for me, I'm willing to pay a little bit more to make sure that I'm not stressed out to the gills and I get to sleep.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. Yeah. So that's what we try to do, is offer that to our clients so that they have a great experience. That's really important to us, is to have a great client experience.
Yeah, it's really key. I think with any service business, the key is really making sure that the customer is correct. I think that's my computer, is it? I don't know.
That was mine. I'm sorry.
That was yours. That's all right. So we got Maria and I were chastised, or at least I was chastised for sure, by the person who does the video editing, saying, Elijah, your computer makes too many noises. And so I make sure I turn everything off, and it's Maria. I'm just grateful that it's not me, really, because I got in trouble so many times. They talk to me every single week. Elijah, your computer's making too many noises. I've tried so many things to make it shut up. Yeah, my tech guy's out of town, and I can't do anything. So the person who's doing the filming right now is laughing online. She's saying, "LOL, LOL." I'm like, "Yeah, it's my fault. Not to me. It's okay. It's fine." Well, tell us. I always like to ask people what's their favorite book. And they said Saved by the Bell. It's hilarious. So what is your favorite book and why?
So one of my favorite books is by Ken Follett. It's called Pillars of the Earth, and it's about this thick, but he takes some historical events and rolls them into a really intricate story. And it just talks about the times of building the large cathedrals back in the, maybe not dark ages, but back then, the long ago times out in Europe, and how that profession just crossed many different generations. You couldn't build a cathedral in one generation. And I don't know, it's just such, I love to read, but that just always kept me engaged. And when I finally was able to go to Europe and stand inside of a cathedral, like all of the stories came back to me, and it just, I was just in awe of the construction of the cathedrals, because, they didn't have all of the modern technologies we have now.
They didn't.
And the blood and the sweat and the conniving and the tears and everything. I don't know. It's a really great story.
I remember being in Prague just after college. I had a scholarship to teach debate. And so I went with the debate team, and we got a bunch of grants, and we went to Prague. And I remember being there and just walking down the streets of this old city, and just walking around the corner and seeing this huge cathedral right in front of you. And it was just built in the middle of the city, and it was a functioning building, but they're enormous. It has this sense of permanence and just strength. Is that book historical fiction, or is it history book, or what kind of book is it?
It's historical fiction. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
To keep you entertained.
Yes. And I've read a lot of his books after reading Pillars of the Earth, and they're all very engaging.
Okay. That's interesting. And then, but you listed two. I always ask customers. I always ask people that come on the podcast. Sorry about that. I always ask people that come on the podcast for books, but you listed two. What's the other one?
Pachinko. Pachinko is, so Pillars of the Earth I read around college time. Okay. So it was a long time ago. And Pachinko I read maybe a couple years ago. And a Pachinko, it's kind of like a gambling fun game out in Japan. So that's where the word comes from.
What do we call it? We call them, it's called something else in English, but it sounds similar. I'm sorry, go ahead. Pachinko. Yeah, it's a gambling game with little balls.
Yeah, little balls. And there's like huge buildings, and they're full of them. But
Plinko. That's what it's called in English. Plinko.
Okay, gotcha. So it starts in Korea when the Japanese had invaded Korea and they were
That was
still under Japanese. So like early 1900s, right? I think before World War One. It just how Koreans were treated so poorly. They didn't have a lot of room for advancement. And it follows the story of this young lady who got duped, got pregnant, somebody helped her, but all of the sufferings and then a lot of the secrets that got kept from family members, and then just how it ends at the end, so it covers a couple generations, but it was just, besides some of the historical stuff, just so much suffering, and how people are so strong. And I don't know, maybe it depends on my perspective. Low middle class, you have certain advantages that others don't, but I just feel like sometimes in America, it's hard for us to connect with a lot of that suffering that other people or maybe other generations have had to go through. And it was a really interesting story.
I would agree with that. I think that Americans don't have a huge ability to deal with, at least some generations don't. And I don't want to speak badly about any specific person or generation, but there's some generations that just don't have a great ability to deal with negative things in their own lives. And I think it's because they haven't experienced much negative things in their lives. Things in the United States, and as long as you have a sufficient amount of money, they're pretty comfortable, right? But there are other places in the world where it's just not. And I remember speaking to a client who was from Saskatchewan, which is northern Canada, and him describing waking up at 4:30 every day, regardless of whether it was blizzarding outside or not, because he had to walk outside to the barn and he had to milk the cows. Now, he had a much harder childhood than I did, but I still had to paint the fence and I had to fix the house. And I started working at 15, and this is just what I did. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I remember hearing a podcast from a business leader who I follow, and he said something that was just super insightful. He said, if you wanted to create the perfect human, the perfect personality, what would that person be? They would be kind. But in order to know kindness, they have to know suffering. So you have to make them suffer. You want them to be patient, which means you have to make them wait for something super important for a long time. If you want them to be resilient, then you have to put them through very difficult circumstances that may test the resiliency. Because the only way to learn resiliency is to go through things, right? So you just explained different types of suffering again and again and again. And he said, if you want to be this person, this is what you have to do. And I don't know if some people are willing to do that. And that's okay. They don't have to. But I intentionally put myself through difficult circumstances because I want to become that person.
Yeah, that's like really remarkable, but it's really true, Elijah. Like everything that what you just said is so, so true. And I would guess that you're on the path to being that person.
Working on it. It's one small baby step at a time, as Shrek would say, one baby step at a time, right? Well, tell me, you seem to like historical fiction. And my wife loves a series of books called the Outlander series. Have you read those?
Mm-mm, I have
They're about
not.
old Scotland, and apparently they're time travelers. So you might find that one interesting. You also listed a quote here, and I'll just read it. You said, where was it? I lost there it is. You said a quote, which is, what was the quote?
Oh, I have
Totally
it.
missed it. Oh, here we go. Be good, be kind, give thanks. Where does that come from?
It comes from a priest after a mass for 8th grade promotion at
Uh-huh.
one of my nieces or nephews' graduation.
Uh-huh.
It's a derivative of an Irish prayer,
Mhm.
but it was really easy to remember that. So I always tell my boys to be good, be kind, and give thanks, because sometimes they forget, and especially when we're talking about the younger generations. Even though they might have an easy life, there's nothing wrong with them to being grateful for it. And just keeping in mind that we don't know what other people are going through, and they might not be at their best, but that doesn't give us the okay to be mean back to them.
I also remember a circumstance you never know who you're talking to, right? So when my wife and I first started dating, I taught debate. So I taught parliamentary debate at a college level, and I had taken second at an international argument competition. So I was good at that. And then
I can see that.
my wife managed about 400 million, I think 400 million in purchasing. So she was a purchasing manager and she was a professional negotiator. So we started to get into an argument, first argument, and we started playing our professional game. And I started to twist and manipulate her words, and she started to hedge her position. And I realized in that moment that this person is dangerous. Okay. I can either choose, I could win this argument and burn the whole sucker down. Okay. Or I could treat her with respect and understand that I'm not going to win, because if I win, I lose. And so negotiate an outcome. That's been our relationship from then on. So
Awesome.
there have been very few knockdown fights because she's just dangerous. Yeah. It's funny.
That's
It's
great.
hilarious. I think, however, that might be a disservice to my kids, though, because my children know a house that's fairly emotionally peaceful and stable. We have interactions and we have ups and downs, and marriages have their great years and they have their difficult years, and things go forward. The thing that I tell her all the time is, I chose you and I choose you, and that's it. Okay. But they don't have knockdown screaming fights, because if they did, we would literally verbally destroy each other, because we both have a high level of skill in that area, right? It's like two military operators don't get into a fist fight or somebody's going to die. But my kids don't see that. They only see these fairly stable parents. So whenever there's some sort of conflict, they totally freak out. I'm like, this is normal. What's the problem? This is normal. So I think it's a disservice. It's a long story to say that maybe I should fight with my wife, but I shouldn't. She will literally destroy me.
I would suggest you just get a proxy.
Yeah, I don't know. Arguing between proxies. Yeah. I'd like the couch, but not that much. I don't want to sleep there. That's hilarious. So tell me about your wedding that was a year ago. Did you guys go anywhere? Was it a destination wedding, or did you have a lot of people, or what?
Oh my gosh. No, no, and no, and no. So it was really a thing of, is this going to happen or not type of a situation. And what are you doing on Wednesday? End of last year. So we got married December 27th. And then we had our, who's the person that does the wedding part?
The officiant.
Officiant, yes. So we had our officiant, which happened to be Richard Wong, my business partner. And so we're both at the office in our sweatpants working the last week of the year, because nobody's doing anything. We're just kind of cleaning up and preparing for the new year, working on our goals. And he yells at me, because his office is next to mine. He yells at me, well, do you have the paperwork? And I'm like, I thought you are the officiant. You should have the paperwork. So it was a mad scramble from like 10 a.m. to go over to the county and get our license that needed to be signed. So we really didn't tell anybody. It was just kind of our secret. And we told our children that morning. And yeah, it was great. My youngest son, Joseph, got me some flowers, and it was really intimate. It's exactly what we wanted.
It's a good boy. Yeah, most people don't know, or some people that have never interacted with that before don't know that to become married is if it's the government, it's kind of a routine, ordinary process. You go to the recorder's office and you get some form from the recorder, and then you find somebody who's able to provide it. By the way, it takes 2 minutes to be able to provide it. I officiated a friend's wedding, and I went online and I said, how do I officiate a wedding? So I'm a Unitarian priest. Who knew? Okay, that's me. So apparently you have to pay your $75 fee, and then you can be some sort of a thing. I didn't want to pay the $350 fee in which I could become a priest of the Klingon Empire. That's not my thing. So I paid $350.
Everybody needs a side hustle, Elijah. So
everybody does, but I don't speak Klingon. I'm not that good at languages, and my head plate just isn't big enough. So that kind of shows my level of jerkiness, my level of geekiness, I should say. So it's not for me. But yeah, it was. Did he tell you what it was like to officiate a wedding?
Richard?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure he told me what it was like, but he again hollered at me in the afternoon, "Aren't you gonna go home and get ready?" And I yelled back, "I'm not sure what I'm gonna wear." But he showed up at the house, wearing his suit and a really nice tie. I believe he brought us a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, it was pretty funny.
My wife and I, we eloped. Actually, we got married at City Hall in San Francisco. And that is just a beautiful place. It was absolutely gorgeous. And in my entry, when you enter my house, on the left-hand side, there's this watercolor painting that looks like it's a picture in the rain, but it's a picture of Civic Center in San Francisco. My kids always looked at it and they were like, "That's just a picture that you have." And I said, "No, no, no, that's a really important picture. That's where Mom and I got married." They say, "What, you got
Aw.
married where?" I said, "It's that building right there. That's where we got married." And so it's
Aw,
nice. It's nice. You should have
that's
something
lovely.
there. Yes, you got married in your
Yeah.
house. That's
In
nice.
our house. Yep,
Mm,
yep, by the Christmas tree.
yeah. I don't want to out you, but if you haven't set up your trust since then, you need to. I think I just outed you.
It's on the list, Elijah. It's on the
Good.
list.
No worries. All
It's
right.
yeah.
I know a couple of good ones. You just let me know if you need some more.
But talking about that though, it's really, really difficult to convince my clients who don't have a trust that they need to get one. And I just don't know. Even the ones that say, "Yes, I know," I almost have to like drag them to the attorney's office to get started.
It's a hard thing because people are motivated by pain, right? And oftentimes there's this really famous quote, and I don't know who said it first, but I've heard plenty of people say it since then, which is that people tend to do the thing that causes them less pain. And so what I have seen over a long period of time is that the people that come to me know the pain that they're likely to experience in the future, or
Mm,
someone else is likely to experience, and they don't want that pain, and they're willing to pay someone money and to go through a fairly rigorous, difficult process of self-examination and
mhm,
difficult thinking about very difficult things. It's not easy to think about death, right? But very
right.
difficult things, and then come to a resolution. And that just, it's a big barrier. A lot of people don't want to do that. I think that I heard a quote, and I think it's true, that 50 to 55% of people die without even a basic will.
Mm,
And so it's just the fact that a vast majority of people don't want to deal with it. And frankly, it has nothing to do with the amount of money that you have. It doesn't. It's no
yeah.
relationship. Prince had 3 or 4 billion. He didn't have a will.
Oh, I
I think
know.
his estate was valued at 1.5 billion, but its actual value was about 3.5. And he didn't have a will. Coolio, the guy who did the Gangster of Paradise, no
Yeah.
will.
Wow.
And the fight for Prince's estate is still going on. He died 8 years ago. They're still fighting.
Yeah.
The last
That's
lawsuit was filed last year. They're still fighting.
yeah.
There's no relationship. I think that it's just doing hard things. I actually applied to do a TED talk on this thing. Not
Uh-huh.
not, not the fact of convincing people to do an estate plan, but the fact of convincing people to agree to do hard things because they're the right thing.
Mhm.
And I think I applied to 2 or 3 places and they turned me down. Maybe I wasn't pretty enough. I don't know. But it's probably true. But it was really interesting just trying to put
You
this
don't
together.
have a big enough.
I do not have the Klingon headpiece. I don't people who listen to this will not know this, but near Maria and I, there's a really famous amusement park called Great America. And it was purchased by Paramount a while ago. And when it was first purchased, when I was a kid, I would
Uh-huh.
go there and there were people dressed as Klingons on mini stilts. They had these huge rising shoes, so they would be like 6'6". And they were dressed like Klingons, like their characters, right? So they had all these different characters from Paramount, and one of them were Klingon. And I spoke to one time. So I asked him, I told him, I've heard that the Bible has been translated into Klingon. His response was hilarious. He said, as it should be. It was so it's hilarious.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Maria, it's so good to talk to you. It's good to see you again. I think we're going to see each other again this week,
Yes, sir.
and next week. We're familiar faces,
Lucky
but
me.
lucky me. So, thank you for talking to us. If people want to find you, Below your name, it says mortgage broker, but talk just for a minute about your company, about Veridian.
Sure. So Veridian Mortgage is based in Santa Clara. We do all of our loans are available in the state of California. So our licenses are all through state licenses. So we can do loans in California and 6 other states. Again, we focus on client experience, and we did create a platform that we have registered, trademarked as Very Service. And Very Service is to ensure that our clients are getting that high touch. We have service level agreements to ensure that we respond quickly and we don't leave any calls behind. And we love working with all of our clients, even if they're not quite ready. I love to work with them to guide them on what are some of the steps that they can take to get to homeownership. Because for the vast majority of us, homeownership is going to be our biggest asset and our biggest financial property.
Right. And, you know, home ownership is great because it lowers the risk of investment, right? If you're going to invest in something and you live in the home, then you can merge together your cost of living plus your investment. And you get to use other people's money, called capital. You get to use other people's money to grow the value of your investment. If the property goes up, if you invest $1,000 and the property goes up 1%, you keep $10. But if you invest $1 million, but only have $1,000 invested and the property goes up 1%, then you get to keep 10,000. So it's just a factor of multiples. It's just a reminder to me that real estate is great. Businesses are great, right? If you can invest in business, the same thing. Well, Maria,
Absolutely.
it's fantastic. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. I was just going to agree with you one more time, Elijah, on the record.
Appreciate that. Thanks. Behind the record, you'll tell me tomorrow whether you agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Maria, it's great to talk to you. You have been listening to the Keys to Your Legacy podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a podcast focused on trust and estates issues, but we're really focusing on people and on process and on improvement. I'm Elijah Keys. Thank you so much for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast. You can find it wherever podcasts are found. That would be YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and other places that I don't even know about. Leave us a comment to let us know if you want us to talk about something else or if you think that Maria should do her trust. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
You've been tuning into The Keys to Your Legacy with your host, Elijah Keys. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, keyslawgroup.com. Thank you for your positive